We have displaced fear with absolute confidence because we've learned Ephesians 6:10 through 18, the 6 pieces of armor God has designed for the believer. You don't have to fear Satan. He may be mighty, but God is almighty. Now, remember please, armor piece number 1, the belt of truth. Armor piece number 2, the breastplate of righteousness. Armor piece number 3, your spiritual shoes. Today we come to armor piece number 4, the shield of faith. Ephesians 6, verse 16. Watch this promise. Above all, taking the shield of faith, with which you will be able to quench all, and let me pause there, all the fiery darts of the wicked one. Do you know that every single arrow the enemy aims at you, you can quench through the shield of faith? Now, this is fascinating because it is a specific kind of shield that Paul was referring to. He uses an indisputable Greek term. The shield Paul refers to was a shield about 2.5 feet wide, 4.5 feet wide, and it was designed to protect the entire body of the Roman soldier. In that day of the first century, those soldiers were considerably smaller than the average man today. I'm 6'1", they were much smaller, probably a foot or more smaller. And so the soldiers who carried these shields were in the front lines of battle. And normally they stood side by side, as we've seen in many movies depicting that era. And what they would do is they would lock their shields side by side next to one another, nearly 1.5 miles wide. Now let me picture this so you know exactly what Paul is saying. Paul says that if you take the shield of faith and you hold it up, you will be able to stand against all the fiery darts of the wicked one. And so as those lacerating, combustible arrows lit on fire were headed toward those Roman soldiers in the front lines, what would they do? They would take their bodies and they would slowly squat down, tucking their entire body behind the shield, and they would be protected from every single flaming arrow that came their way. Now, the word faith is strategic here. This word faith is not talking about saving faith. It refers to the faith that trusts in the promises and power of God. To fight this battle, you have to have faith. God will not forsake you. I will not leave you, Hebrews 13:5. And you say, Jerry, what is faith? 11:1. Now, faith is the substance of things hoped for, and it is the evidence, Hebrews 11, verse 1, of things not seen. Remember Hebrews 11:6. But without faith, it is impossible to please God. For he that comes to God must believe that he is, and that he is the rewarder of those who diligently seek God. I know what you're saying. But Jerry, what about what happened to my mother? What about that sickness that came in our family? Jerry, what about my son who's got me worried every night? How in the world do I keep those fiery darts of the enemy? What about my husband who's not a believer yet? I want to give you the single key to live a life by faith. Don't ever forget this, please. Habakkuk, the Old Testament prophet, watched as God raised up Babylon to destroy his own people. Think on that. And Habakkuk was gripped with the question why. God answered, Habakkuk, but the just shall live by faith. Here's the key thought. Someday we will know. Someday we will fully understand. But now we must take every experience and every battle in life by faith. Let me be honest with you. I went home last night really concerned, worried about an area. You know what my wife did? She did what she's done consistently for 34 years. She spoke faith into my life. And as she spoke faith, guess what I did? I remembered what Paul said, what I've been teaching you. And I took that shield and I got my entire spiritual body behind that shield. We prayed together, and guess what happened? That fiery dart of the wicked one to try to get me to worry, I said, wait a minute, Lord. You said, the just shall live by faith. You can quench every fiery dart. Put the shield up. Get under it. Get behind it. Trust a God who's never failed anyone.